Hey, good evening, everybody. Corey Rennie, the Unemployable Counsellor. I'm here with my dog Mando to do my version, I guess, of viewer mail. I had a subscriber who suggested something after my number 18 misappropriation, corruption, and the blind eye. I was going to call it video, but it's not fair to say it's a video or an episode. I kind of like ramblings of an unemployed counselor. I kind of like that. But for me, I was very excited to see this suggestion, and it was, how do you fix that situation when there's corruption, misappropriation, and you think someone's turning a blind eye, and you're kind of stuck in the middle as the guy who's reporting this? How do you get out of that situation? And I was like, man, that's a really good question. Simple answer is you can't. Which is not, the video's not over. Please don't shut it off. But what I mean by that is this is like, look, there's some things you have to do to ensure that you are taken care of. Because if you're in a situation like that, where you're one against maybe an organization or against people, and not by choice at all. Your role is to go in there and do your job the best way you can. It's these external factors that are all of a sudden in the way and stopping you from doing what you need to do. So how do you go about that? Well, first off, keep notes. Document. That's the number one thing I can tell you to do. Anytime something happens, document. If you're sending something, if you send them an email and they're not answering, document it. Okay? Who, when, and the time, get a little book. Say, hey, I tried to talk to this guy about this issue, left a message, no return call, right? Start documenting that kind of stuff. Emails, a lot of emails have read receipts and delivered receipts. Use them. Because if they're not opening them, you don't know for sure unless you have something like that attached. And then well, geez, they're not reading my emails because I'm getting the receipts saying they've been delivered, but the receipt saying that they've been opened isn't happening. So they're not opening them. So they're not reading them. So clearly what you're sending is going off the cliff, even though you watched them set free and you got proof that they're set free, right? Things like that. That's number one by far. If you have any documents, any reports that you have to make, if you have meetings that you voice your concerns at, keep a copy of those notes. Keep a copy of those minutes. Keep a copy of that meeting, itinerary or agenda, right? The more information you have that establishes a paper trail on that other side, it's going to help you out greatly. Because let's face facts. If you're working for a place that is doing something that is not above board, you got to prove that. And right now, it'll be easier for them to be like, what do you mean? It's not us. It's this person. Oh, we didn't know anything. He never told us, or she never told us. It's this person's fault. Even though the only people benefiting from that is them, is on that side of the coin. You're not. You're there struggling day to day, working in an environment that you don't feel good about because there's maybe something unscrupulous going on that you can't seem to report to anyone because no one wants to hear it. Nobody wants to acknowledge it. And when they do, it's things like, why do you want to change things? Things are working great. What's your problem? It's like, no, they're not working great. They're working great for you and your stuff because there's stuff going on that you don't know about. And by you, I mean me or the manager or whoever it is, right? The people in those situations where they're kind of left on their own island goes back to they have all the responsibility but none of the authority. So when stuff goes south, right, and it's bad, and you have to make decisions on the fly to make it, and if no one's responding or paying attention or they vanish, and you're left holding the bag and you make decisions because you need what you need to get through that day or that week or that month, you've already lost. Because who's going to come in and be like, you know what? You're doing the right task here. You're doing the right thing here. We got to get this out. No. I mentioned before in another video that the higher you go up on that kind of management chain, and I'm not saying it's everyone, but hypothetically now, the higher you get, I find that it becomes more about the bottom line because that's their mandate. You might be boots on the ground, flipping burgers or pumping gas or, whatever it is, right? Sweeping street, doesn't matter. The higher they go, it's about budget, it's about money, and it's about how to cut corners, because they're not looking at the human element. It's the fiscal element, right? And if you're not willing to work through that or to see the other side of it, you get situations like I'm describing, where all of a sudden you're one person against what feels like the world. Because in that bubble, it is you against the world. How do you combat that? You can't. That's where it goes back to, you got to take documentations. You got to have your evidence. You got to have things say. No, I'm not talking about taking out confidential, forms and putting them on the internet or wherever. I'm talking about making sure you have stuff to cover your own backside, because no one else is going to do that for you. They're clearly doing it for them. And if people are making decisions that aren't above board, then the response and defensiveness from that other side is going to be like an avalanche, because they can't have anyone looking at them. That's the way they're looking at it. They can deflect and shield themselves. I think I used a good metaphor or analogy. I always confuse those two, but it's like, it's a bulletproof vest. You're the bulletproof vest. Okay? They're not. They're wearing you to deflect pain from them. And that's what happens in most cases. Now, with management, a lot of times, like I know from different things, right? If there's a guy or girl or whatever underneath you and they're doing kind of stuff, they can do things, and they might be doing things without your knowledge, right? But they're usually kind of minor things that can't impact the overall impact of the facility unless it involves your staffing. Okay? And it goes to allied building, it goes to all that kind of stuff. That happens in management too. That's not just a co-worker thing. It happens in management too. I always think a lot about codependency when I hear about stuff like that, and we're going to talk more about codependency in a later ramblings. Because most of the times we're not thinking about the needs necessarily of the center. We're focused on our own needs, and that's what makes management such a solitary and difficult profession sometimes. Because I think most people want to do the right thing, but sometimes the system that's built prevents people from doing that. And I mean, whether you can live with that or not, that's up to the individual. I don't think I could anymore. It's part of the reasons why I think I like doing this, and I stepped away from mental health and addictions just based off my experiences. Some of them left a bitter taste in my mouth, and right? And I'm not blaming anyone. That's nobody's fault. That's just my view of the situation. But I mean, that kind of stuff isn't for everyone. And I think if you want to lead a healthy, happy life, you need to look at things to do that don't have that much stress and anguish attached to it. It's just my take. I do believe that in situations like that, if you're reporting it to people and they don't want to hear it, and then you're reporting to someone who you think is going to listen and take it seriously because of what their stature, their role is or whatever, and they don't, or they side with the other party, which is fine. But I think there are situations that occur where integrity is needed, and I think management is one of those things. There should be some integrity. There should be some view of working with people to get your goals met and to get everything achieved. And like I said, maybe I'm naive, but I prefer hopeful. But I mean, when I think about working in places, there's some managers you can work with and some you can't. And I found some of the issues that I've always had have been with things that are not in my control. Okay? And there's lots that aren't in control. If things are happening that you're not privy to, but yet you're responsible for, that's a huge red flag. Because they're not talking to you, there's no communication, and they're doing things on the outside that's going to impact you, and they're keeping you in the dark. Because the less you know, the better. Because if you've already been reporting stuff, or you've been like, hey, look, I don't think this is right, or I think there's issues here, and they don't want to do that, but then all this stuff is happening behind the scenes, you're already hooped. Because what they're doing is, just like I said with allied building, right? And I said that earlier, that happens in management too. Right? It does. And I mean, especially if something's bad happening, especially if that bad thing impacts more than one or two people, then it's definitely in a united front. And it's easier to wear you as a bulletproof vest than it is to take the shot themselves. And I think that's where we end up a lot of the times. So to answer to follow up with the suggestion from the subscriber, there's not much you can do to fix that. There really isn't. There's always options. But I mean, if the place you're working is already headed down that path, and they already put you on an island, they're planning on nuking that island, right? So that's why make sure you got documentation, make sure you have proof. And if they don't want to tell you anything or give you anything, or even, if they don't want to do any of those things, then clearly they just want you gone. And why is that, right? I remember once I was told that, hey, man, are you sure that this is the course of action? Because you're going to wear this. And when they come after someone, it's probably going to be someone that's attached to that. Hypothetically, right? And I mean, you have to make a decision on what you can live with. Most people, it goes to be about the money. You can turn a blind eye if you're getting paid enough, I think. But no, that's wrong. I don't think that. I think that there's no amount of money that you should be able to pay anyone to turn a blind eye or to shut them up. Okay? If what you're saying is truthful and what you know to be true, and if you have evidence of it, then I think you should take the proper channels. But I mean, everyone is different. And it doesn't... John Mellencamp once said in a song, the best efforts don't always pay. And I believe that to be true. But at least I think the cost of being able to look yourself in the mirror and know that maybe you're doing the right thing, I think outweighs that. So again, documentation, take notes. Forget the term, contemporaneous notes. I forget it. But anyway, there's a term that while things are going on, if you're writing down, it's like, yeah, I tried to call this guy, nothing happened. No response. I sent an email, they're not answering. If you keep a record of those things, as well as any documents you have to support what you're doing and the struggles you're facing, at the very, very least, when the hammer falls, and it falls on you, because let's face facts, it's going to fall on you, you at least have something to be like, hold on, I've done this, this, and this, and now this is what's coming back. None of this seems right. None of this seems okay. And then you'll have a case, because you have evidence. You have things to support your view in this. And not everybody does that, right? Managers with lots of experience might do that. Beverage, right? Which is probably which in my mind is the only thing you can do. Because, like I said before, there's no honor among thieves. And again, that's just everyone's out for themselves. So you need to be too. You can be nice, you can treat people good, and it can be about a team. But you still need to take steps to protect yourself. I always like hearing, I just have such a big heart. I love everybody. I can't do that. Okay, fine. But then you'll face the consequences of that when things go south. Or the codependency kicks in so bad that you can't say no. You have to do this because, or whatever. Hey, I'm not trying to make this too rambly tonight, but I'm just saying that when it comes to trying to fix those problems for yourself, there's not a lot you can do except make sure you're covered. Notes is the best way to do it. But anyways, we're just about 15 minutes. I didn't want to go too long tonight. I hope this wasn't too rambly. It's been a weird week for me. But like I said, we're going to have some come up on codependency. I want to talk more about how addiction impacts the people in the user's life. I think that'll be pretty good. And yeah, man, just take care of each other. Be nice to each other, right? We're all in this together. So let's try to make life easier for everybody, okay? All right, Corey Rennie, Unemployable Counsellor. Thank you for the suggestion. I hope I answered it. Hope it wasn't too rambly. But yeah, you guys take care of yourselves, and we'll be in touch soon. All right, goodbye.